Hi everybody, I'm doing a very quick video because I see oftentimes other collectors posting pictures with frustrations of figures that seem to have flaking or drying or cracking faux leather, and I just wanted to show a little video on what I do for my figures because I hate to see anybody else miss an opportunity to help protect their collectibles. This is a very informal video. In fact, I don't know if I've ever used or made a video before, not with this camera. And I'm not a professional video maker, so this is going to be kind of awkward. But just wanted to show everybody that there is hope if you just keep up collecting, keep up with your figures. My kitties are very interested in what I'm doing, so come on. No, you get away. Come on. Come on. Down. Good job. Anyway, so I'm going to start with my crow figure because that seems to be one of the figures that tends to fall apart the most often. First thing I'm going to say is that I live in a very dry climate and my figures typically do not get any sunlight. So those are two important things to try to avoid your figures getting any direct sunlight. And if you can, try to do any sort of dehumidifying devices or options, do what you can with that. But I've been moisturizing my crow figure. Well, I've been moisturizing all of my pleather figures for at least a couple years. And so far, so good. So I'm just going to start with him. Sorry, I'll try not to ramble on too much. But I'm going to start by removing the accessories. Well, some of these figures I'll undress, like my Terminators. Others, maybe not. But hopefully you can see that his coat is in pretty much, I would say, almost brand new condition because I've been keeping up on it. I usually do this roughly twice a year. I'm doing it a little bit out of the usual rotation for right now. See if I can just get him to stand there for a second. And the product I use is this Trinova faux leather cleaner. I bought it on Amazon. I don't think it was very expensive. I want to say it was like maybe $12 or $13 for this bottle. Here, let me move Eric out of the way so you can get a better look at the picture, the product that I'm using. Here's what it says on the back if you're interested. And I got to apologize, my tablet camera's not the greatest, not as good as my smartphone, so you can pause this, I guess, if you want to read more. But all I do is I take a microfiber cloth, kind of like the kind you might get with a pair of glasses, and I just soak the thing up, get it nice and wet, and then I take the figure and I literally just wipe him down. I kind of do the inside edges, but the inside material itself isn't pleather, so I don't typically do that. And you just get all the spots. Got to get in the cracks and all the folds, and you just keep moisturizing this. I've never had an issue of getting this cleaning solution on any of the cloth underneath, like his shirt. It has never discolored anything that I've ever used it on. And I can tell he's getting ready, that it's time for him to have his bath because it just soaked this moisturizing agent right up. This microfiber cloth it's not dry, but it's soaking this stuff in. I go down the edges here, try to get in behind the collar, just giving him overall a really nice, gotta watch out where Hot Toys, obviously those of you who have this figure know this was already intentionally cut up here. That's not something that happened as part of this. And I'm usually a little bit more gentle with this because I'm not usually reaching around my camera to show you this, and you just go around and just work the stuff in, get it in the folds. I mean, yeah, right at first it looks very slick and wet, but as it dries, it doesn't look unusual. And then, so it's time for, like I said, this cloth is kind of dried a bit. You can't see on the camera down there, but I'm just basically just squirting a little bit more onto the cloth. And now I'm going to get his pants. And I'm not really watching the camera while I'm doing this, unfortunately, so I'm not seeing. I'm hoping you're seeing what I'm doing okay here. Get the back, around his butt, the insides of the thighs, around the waist. Like I said, I got a little bit on his stomach wrap. Never had a problem with any discoloring on any other cloth surfaces. On my Terminators, I've used this forever on my Terminators before I read that the Terminators are supposed to be real leather, but this stuff seems to work on them just fine too. I'll usually take their whole jacket off and do the insides of that too. It's pretty much done. So that's how I've been trying to keep Eric's jacket. Right now it's so soft and supple. Well, actually, it's a good point. I didn't rub into these little guys as well as I should have, and they're feeling a little stiff. So make sure you get everywhere. Like I didn't get these belt ends as well as I originally wanted to. So let me get those, and they're already loosening up. I know a lot of people tend to say that Hot Toys and other companies use really cheap quality pleather, but the fact of the matter is, for those of you who have people in your lives, or if you yourself buy a lot of pleather clothes, this stuff, the drying and the cracking and the flaking, it will happen to any pleather if you're not careful and if you don't maintain it. Kind of like real leather. I've seen some people say you never have to maintain real leather, and that's not true. You have to buy leather moisturizers over time, or it will also crack. Something else I'm going to show you real quick. I'm going to add just a little bit more into my cloth. And I also go over his guitar strap, because that's feeling pretty stiff. That's drying out too. Like I said, I'm holding these things a little bit more clumsily than I would usually do it. I wouldn't like to hold the weight of the guitar pulling on the strap, but I'm trying to get around my camera so that you all can see what I'm doing. And just keep going up and down, rubbing it into the strap on his guitar. Yeah, that's loosening up pretty well. After I just freshly do this, I'll leave his guitar off of him for right now until this dries. It'll dry in about 20 minutes on his coat, 20, 30 minutes. And then probably later, I'll probably go over the guitar itself with just a Kleenex just to wipe some of the smears off. So I'm going to set that down there, and I'm going to let those things dry. One other quick thing I'm just going to show you, because it was time for this guy here. My Snow Speeder Luke, or Rogue One. I'm going to move my camera over here just a little bit. My Luke, because you got to remember to do, even if most of them is not pleather, you got to remember to do the bits and pieces. So he's got his belt and his belt pouches that are going to need some work. So again, I'm going to spray some more onto here. For this guy, yeah, see, his holster is feeling real stiff to me. So it's wet on the backside there, and I'll just squirt literally right into the holster and on top of it, and I let that stuff soak in. Again, I haven't had discoloration problems on the other fabrics, but I like to try to protect it a little bit, just in case. But I don't know if you can see at the base of the strap right there, the difference, where it's soaked into the pleather versus not. It's dry up along the strap here. It's really dry. So squirting that in there, letting it soak into the material, giving it a good rub. Be careful of the rivets on this figure in particular, because those rivets come off pretty easily. But you soak it in there, and that material is softening up really nice. This is another one where I don't store his gun in there anyway on display, but I wouldn't put that gun back in for half an hour, 45 minutes, let that dry. Like his strap, very fragile. Like I said, guys, I'm sorry this is awkward that I'm trying to reach around my camera here, but that strap needs to soak this stuff in. This is why some of these straps flake and break and snap over time, because they get so dry. Now see, that's looking a lot better. It's not so dry looking. I hope that's coming through on the camera. I'm going to let that just kind of flop back over and magnify or magnetize there. And then for his pouches, again, I'm not going to take the whole, no, screw it. Here, I'll just on this guy, because I love this figure. Yeah. All right, well, I don't love him that much. I'm going to go ahead and just rub over. Oh, there we go. All right, let's go ahead and move him aside. Let's see, these things come off pretty easily if I remember right. Yeah. So I'll take off each of these little pouches. You know, your mileage will vary how much time you want to put into doing this, but I think if you're collectibles, if you feel like it's worth it, I'm going to give these each a good rubbing over, and that's just softening up in my hands. It just feels, I'm happy with how that's softening up. If you live in a moist climate or a humid climate, maybe your pleather's not stiffening like mine does in a dry climate, but I just don't feel like I want to take the chance. See how dry, I'm hoping you can see in there how dry the inside of this belt is. And see, if I just put this moisturizer on it, see, look at that. And it soaks it right in, because this stuff, it's very thin, and it'll dry and crack and break over time, and that feels so much better right now to me. I'm going to go ahead and take these other pieces off. I hate sliding these off normally because those rivets are so fragile. But see, I don't know if you can see on the inside of the holster there and the inside of the strap there, kind of dry in there. So I'm going to take this, squirt a little bit in there, and then squeeze it together and let that, I guess I could have just opened it like that. But see what I'm talking about, the difference. See, that's where the moisturizer didn't get in there. And I want to get that nice and wet. This figure, this Luke in general, or in particular, like I said, you got to be careful with this one, because these have always been the fragile pieces on this guy. But again, you know, these don't open, if I remember right. No, I'm wrong. They do. So, you know what? Since you could. I don't think I'm going to do this. I think it's going to be okay. That is not leather coming off. That's a scab I had on my finger. I cut myself. You could take some tweezers and take that bubble wrap out that's inside those pouches. I don't think I'm going to do that, but I am going to hit this. I'm going to just let this bleed a little bit of this off into there. Let it soak in. kind of get down in there. Probably someday I probably should take some tweezers, pull that bubble wrap out, and just squirt the whole inside too to really get it. But I think it'll be okay for right now. So, yeah, and just keep doing that with each of the pouches. Some of your figures, the pouches may not come off easily, so what I try to do is I just really rub it over the pouches. Generally just to keep moisturizing the stuff, at least on the outside. If you can get it on the inside, that would be even better to help really soak in the moisturizing material. And I know this stuff takes time. When I try to do this once in December, once in June usually. And I've got a lot of figures. I've got over 200 figures, and a lot of them have pleather. So it takes me literally off and on at least three to 4 days. I don't just sit down and do this straight for 3 or 4 days, but it takes time. And I know it's kind of, I'm not going to pull that out today. It takes time, and I know it's kind of a pain, but when you're dropping $200, $300 on some of these figures, I think it's worth it. Now see, there's an example of this figure. The glue, the super glue, I don't know if you can see that the magnet came off from this end when I opened it, and I didn't notice it till now. That's an example of why this figure is very fragile. I'm gonna do this off camera. I'm just gonna take a spot of super glue, put that back on, and re-glue that magnet there. But yeah, that's the folly with this figure, that you got to be so careful. I don't know that I would actually take this whole thing apart every 6 months. I'd probably do this like I am right now, once a year. But then on my off month, just give the outer pouches a good moisturizing, just to keep them loose. Let's see what's going on in there. They're just kind of crumpled in there. But see, even those wrinkles in there, those will crack and dry if you don't work this stuff into it. All right, let's open this and see if that magnet... Okay, that magnet stayed. Do a little bit on the inside here. Soak it in. Holsters, I find on figures, that's a good spot. If you got a pleather holster, got to make sure you get in there, soak it in. I think that's got that pouch. And finally, here's the rest of the belt. You can see parts of this belt are, really dry. The other parts I've been handling, not so much. So, again, I'm just going to soak this cloth up really good with the moisturizer. And I'm just going to go from one end to the other, just letting it soak in. And just, I don't know how to describe it, everyone. I can just feel the stiffness evaporating, and this feeling so much softer. See, it won't even stand up because it's getting the moisture that it needs. So I'm going to have to be real careful around the ends down here. In fact, I think what I'm going to do on these ends, so I don't mess up these rivets, I'm going to hold this just in my hand right about here, and I'm just going to spray it right onto the belt. And I'm going to lightly squeeze it together. I don't want to strip those rivets off. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. I want to get this area up here. So much better feeling. There we go. And now, that's pretty much it. I'm going to let the stuff all dry for about half an hour. Then I'm gonna come back and super glue this little magnet back onto the pouch there. Put his belt all back together. Put Luke back together. Putting him back on my shelf where he belongs. Anyway, I hope this has been at least helpful. Like I said, do this for anything that's got, well, I should say I do this for anything that's got faux leather parts and pieces to try to keep up on my collection so that it doesn't deteriorate over time. And I'm hoping that you'll find that if you do something similar, whether you use this exact product or you find another product that works for you, I hope you find that it will help your collection out. So good luck, everybody. Thank you.